Hey boys and girls and mom, welcome to Lake Louisville and the Vexus VX20 video. Don't tell Willie I've never driven a boat before. He just thinks I know how to drive one. He's backing me in. Alright, let's see what we got here. Where's the start switch? Good Lord. I better pay attention for a minute, guys. Okay guys, I've been doing these historically as two videos. Video one, I review the boat. Video two, I grade the boat. I'm going to forewarn you, I've not made up my mind how I'm going to complete this video, but I drove this boat, which is a VX20, and I am intrigued by the boat for a couple of reasons, but I don't feel like I got a great sense of the ride in the boat, and I really want to be in a 21-foot boat. So somewhere in the next week, I'm going to do my best to go over to Toledo Bend and ride around and drive and fish out of a VX21. And I think I'm going to save my review, or at least my scoring, until I've reviewed that boat. This boat is very different than anything else I've reviewed, and I really want to make sure I get a sense of it before I stick a grade on it. So stick around. We're going to review the VX20 here, and the VX21 I'll just roll in later. Is that a pull-out step on the back?
Yes.
All right, guys. So we've got a walk around and a ride today in a Vexus VX20, and just at first glance, a couple things I see that I like. So obviously, we've already discussed sort of price of admission, right? Swing away tongue. I would bet you money that may not be a Fulton winch, but that looks like a good winch.
But it's stout.
Good winch. Trailer brakes, you know my feeling about that.
Double axle.
Oh, check that out. So I asked Willie as I walked by the way, boat owner.
Willie us.
So that's pretty cool. That's a full pull-out ladder and probably won't fold down like mine will. Fold that back up for me. So one of the little things that's happened on my Ranger before is I'll unhook. There you go. I have unhooked my trailer latch. Okay guys, so I caught this in editing and had to make a few phone calls to understand this. And this is why I feel like I might need a little bit more time. I know this is choppy footage because I slowed it down. But as I'm looking through the footage, I'm like, wait a minute, there's no Talon or power pole, or in this case, Raptor bracket on the back of this boat. So what they've done is they have screwed that straight through the transom into an aluminum block inside the transom. And if you don't know much about power poles, they're all built around bushing systems. And what happens is, as you extend it off, so you've got a set of bolts to the motor, then you've got a set of bolts to from the bracket to the motor, from the bracket then to the poles. And what happens is, because of all that play, you start getting a lot of wiggling in it, whereas your bushing's out faster. And that's why you see so many of those things that are wiggling going down the road. The thought process behind this, and in fact what's going to happen is, these aren't going to wiggle as much because they're mounted to a more solid surface. There's no leverage, if you will, being out away from the boat. And this is one of those things where it's like, okay, there's some guys who kind of thought some stuff through and said, hey, we can drop the weight of that bracket and also the wiggle of that bracket and through both those into the transom. That's a pretty slick idea. I wish I'd have gotten y'all a better video of it, but I think you get a sense of it right there. Trailer latch, and it hung on the ladder. Couldn't back off the trailer, couldn't figure out why. It is a clean deal. We were just talking about, I have not seen Raptors before, so Minn Kota Raptors. It's a pretty boat, and I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, and I'm doing it above my head, but Vexus puts sea deck, or a form of sea deck, throughout most of the boat. Loaded up 4 12-inch Humminbird Solixes. Really good looking boat. That's funny, the first one I saw, I did not like the lines on it, but I like the lines on this one. It's funny how color will change.
The color makes a difference.
It really does.
I really wanted the lighter silver, but I didn't like the way it looked.
Yeah, there's a white one online I looked at this morning that's really pretty too. All right, let's go take a boat ride. Okay. So right off the bat, it's a pretty fancy looking setup here. Start switch is down here. Motor's trimmed a little too high. Let's get her down. got his Solex set up to monitor the motor. That's cool. I haven't been in a boat that's actually got that. So I don't know the measurements on this boat. I'll post them right down there. I spent a little bit of time this morning doing some research on how the boat's built, and it's an interesting process, so I'll be interested to learn more about that. I have a really nice gill rain suit 225 miles southeast of here, so not sure how that's going to work out. Now we're going to be cheating a little bit on performance today because the boat's empty. It's a brand new boat. It's got 5 hours on it, but we've got basically no tackle. We are going to fish a little bit. I brought some rods and reels, and we're going to fish out of it because that's important. But the boat's probably a couple of 100 pounds lighter than what it would be if we were loaded up and rigged. So, but I'm looking forward to taking it for a test drive. So he hadn't had this boat out much at all. We really don't even know where to put it on trim. So I'm on first one. We're empty live wells, and we'll just roll it up. Jack plate all the way down. Again, we don't know what we don't know yet. That felt like it jumped. That felt like it jumped out pretty good. Let's spin it up a little bit. Put it on 5. Doesn't care. It may change its mind when you load it, but it doesn't care right now. Okay, so first rattle coming across there, we were running right at 70. And it feels like, now, as we were talking about, it looks like the motor sits super low. And I was all the way up to 10, and I still didn't have it lifted too high. We got a little over 6,000 RPM. There's obviously a lot more speed in this boat than what we just got out of it. But if I was out here risking just my neck, I would probably be more willing to do that. So this is cool. So the first thing we want to do now is obviously we want to check the whole shot with the live wells full. So check this out. So we're filling the live wells, and one of the things, and I'll get more data on this, I may even do a voiceover later on it, but they have this set up so that you completely fill the live wells. By the way, I love how quiet that is. So they've got slam latches on the top of it, right? It's one big live well with a divider, which it looks like it probably would come out, but maybe not designed to come out. But their idea is that you want to fill this live well all the way to the top, which is what we're going to do, and you don't get the sloshing going down the lake that you get in a lot of other boats. Okay, once again, I feel like I need to do a cutaway here to talk a little bit more about this. So you have if you'll notice, there's a gasket around the top of those live wells, and they're on what are called friction hinges, I believe, so they kind of stay in place. They've got slam latches on them. And you can set this live well to run like every other live well does. So it's, I'm going to say 70-ish% full. By the way, I cannot find the capacity on it. I'll keep looking, and when I do, I'll post it. I also can't find the weight of either one of these hulls, the VX20 or 21. But once I know them, I'll get them posted. But so the idea behind this is, and there's actually a good video on YouTube that Vexus did about these live wells, and they put a GoPro in a live well running down the lake with a normal live well system, and you see the fish get bounced around pretty good. And what they believe, and I think they've got video to kind of prove this up, is they can, if you fill that live well, and when you fill that live well, guys, it is all the way, if you've ever overfilled a live well, that's exactly what it looks like. You close a valve, it closes the top overflow and sets a different overflow right at the brim of this live well system. And what they believe is you've then basically pressurized that space, and that water can't slosh around as much. And what they say is this is when you're going to make a long run in rough water with a live well full of fish. You fill it all the way up. Of course, more live well water volume also gets you more oxygen. The live well system comes with an oxygenator. I can't say that word standard. But the idea is not to bounce these fish around as much going down the lake. And I watched the video, and it's a pretty cool idea. And again, you got to give credit where credit's due. I think I mentioned this later in this video, but also note at the very bottom of this picture, that little silver thing, that's the same thing we saw in the Camus boxes where on all of their boxes where those close, they've put a piece of metal there so you won't crack your fiberglass if you close a box with the lid latch turned the wrong direction. Now, I'll talk more about the lid latches later, but I just wanted to point that out on these live wells because it's pretty dadgum innovative, and my sense is, you know, it probably works pretty well as well. Now, you're carrying a lot of weight, but you know, at that point, it's more important to get there with live fish than it is to get there 1 minute sooner because you're going a little bit faster. Other boats, and by the way, that's one of the things that, so I've been doing some research before getting in this boat, and one of the other things Vexus did is they put a linear, and I believe it runs most of the length of the boat, the gas tank.
Yeah, well, probably from here to right there.
So it's long and I think not real tall, and it's baffled. And what they say from their research is, and by the way, those live wells are filling and you can't hear them, but what they say from the research is, a lot of times when you get in rough water, some of what's beating you around is that fuel bouncing around inside the gas tank. So they've baffled these the fuel tank. It's a single tank, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So they baffled that fuel tank so that fuel can't slosh back and forth, and they say that'll give you a more consistent and a better ride in rough water. One of the other things you'll note, and you'll even see his seat's moving a little bit, and I looked into this just purely out of curiosity. I think these seats with this air ride system that we're sitting in is a $2,000 to $4,000 upgrade if you just try to put it on a boat.
Yes, but now it's an option on the boat.
Oh, so you don't have to get the air ride seat.
2021, they changed a lot of the options. You can now get a gel coat, and some of their packages you can get without the air ride seats.
Okay.
It appears on the website.
Yeah, yeah. So, and some of that I'm sure is just from a cost standpoint, right? Most of us can't afford to buy this. Of course, a lot of us can't afford to buy a new Ranger or Bass Cat or anything else. And you know, so then I've never gotten into pricing, I'm not going to now, but I think Vexus maybe is saying, okay, well, we're going to try to make it, and granted, they're a brand new boat company, right? So they can only make so many boats, but they're going to try to set up some options where it's a little bit more affordable for most folks. But so far, I'm impressed with it. And I told Willie before we left the boat ramp, the first one of these I saw, I didn't like the lines on it. I actually liked the lines of this boat more looking at it in the parking lot and certainly sitting in it up there. A couple things I'll note here. So I guess they probably don't want you to tie off to this rail, but you could tie off to the rail. You know, they don't have a cleat here, which I'm sure is because they don't want a rope going over the top of that. It's a real clean feel. You see there's space around and under all the seats. It's got the panel, and what I noticed when I turned on the live well is when you turn stuff on, it lights up. So you know that's been one of my complaints with a couple of the boats is you couldn't tell what you were doing. And then I believe, are these breakers?
Yes.
Yeah, so they've got the breaker panel right there under you. Oh, look at this. There's even a light if your ladder's deployed. So if your wife or your son or yourself get in the water and forget to put it back up, you don't drag that thing across the stump running through the canyons and jerk your ladder off. Yeah, you know, I talked about that, so that's one of those slides. Now that one's actually metal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've got a little hidden drawer, and there's actually even one, Willie showed me in the, sorry about that, that was bad audio, I know. There's even one he showed me in the trailer where you could put stuff in there. I think if you did, you'd want to put it in something watertight, because from what we looked at, there's no way that little trailer compartment could be watertight. Those are big live wells. It's going to take a long time for those to fill up.
Is it on fill? It's on empty on the live well.
So it's only going to fill some well.
Is that on full?
Okay, you've never seen me laying on the floor of a boat before, but Willie told me something. He said, check out the wires up under the dash. Now, I don't know how good the lighting is, but if you look under the dash of my boat, there's just wires going everywhere. That is so clean. They've obviously cleaned it up and got better wiring harnesses, is my guess. That's a GPS plug down here?
Yeah.
Is that for the Garmin?
I don't know if it's for the Garmin or the Humminbirds. I think it's for the Humminbird.
I thought the Humminbirds had to be out where it can see the sky, but I could be wrong. All right, we're live wells full. Let's see what we got for hole shot. And you got no ballast in the front end to help roll it over. Yeah, it's a good hole shot. Boat's got a real solid feel. Okay guys, a couple other things. Just this is a better shot of the interior of the boat. I had mentioned how clean the lines were inside of it. And you can see not a lot of fiberglass. You see this particular boat's got the air ride seats in it. It's just got clean lines inside the boat, and of course all the sea decking you see there in the floor and across the top of the cooler as well. Okay, one thing I don't love about the boat is the dash configuration. Now, this is a dual stack, as very similar. I believe this is actually Vexus's, where you saw in Willie's boat, he had one of the best boat, I think Best Boat Technologies, don't quote me on that. But the challenge starts to be seeing your other gauges. And by the way, this is not a Vexus only problem, but hey guys, you're engineering a pretty cool boat here, so give us some additional options in here. So I noticed in Willie's boat, it's really difficult to see the gauges, really difficult. And I've already said this, I don't like digital trim. I want to see an analog trim, or at least something. Well, I do. I want to see an analog trim. And the start switch is actually behind that top left graph, and it's not easy to access. And I start and stop my boat a lot. Now, I'm sure in time I would get used to that, but it just seems like a very clumsy place to put that. And you'll also note there is no trim gauge between these two graphs. That's something, as we talked about, or we talk about later in this video, Willie set up on his own. Now, if you move to a more traditional single graph setup, and I believe you can fit a 15-inch. I'll try to confirm that in that dash. Matter of fact, I think that is a 15-inch right there. If you do that, then it's a lot easier to see your gauges, and you now see that start button top left, so on the port side of the driver console. It's, again, I would prefer having an analog trim gauge, but you know, that's what they're using here. These are not Mercury Smart gauges. These are Vexus's own gauges, kind of like we saw Camus doing in their boat. And then another thing they did that I think is really interesting. So that little thing right there is a fob that you can stick in your pocket, and it serves two purposes. Number one, if you ever put your boat up on the trailer and you got to leave it in gear so you can get the front snapped, you can turn your motor off away from the motor. But the second thing it does, in the state of Texas now, you have to have your kill switch on your life jacket at all times and connected. This is a kill switch, and it meets Texas, I guess, maybe it's probably Coast Guard, but it meets the requirements to be a kill switch. It's got one of those sensors in it, much like the inflatable life jackets. So if you fall in the water, this thing will sense that you've gone in the water, and it'll shut your motor off. So it works as a kill switch as well, which I think is a really kind of a neat thing to have in your boat. The last thing I want to point out in this video is the ice chest. So a couple things. It has a tray built in it, you see there on the left side of the picture, that sits above the ice but is cooled by the ice. So it's a place to put your sandwich, your fruit, your crackers. If you've got a candy bar with you, you don't want it to get hot, you can set it right down in there. Second thing, my understanding is they call this a cold spot ice chest. You see it's got a gasket across the top, it's got a slam latch, and I understand it's got similar rolled foam in it to what some of the most expensive ice chests you see out there in the world today. So I'm told this is the best, and I've been told this by two different people now, the best ice holding ice chest they've ever had in any boat they've ever owned. So again, just the little things they were able to do with this boat as they re-engineered it, and I think that's a pretty cool thing. Okay guys, so we're 20 minutes in. There's no way I'm going to get this done in 2 videos, especially because I really do want to take a look at the 21 footer. So I'm going to end it here. As you can tell, there's some innovations that are intriguing to me. I actually want to do some more research on some of this stuff. I'm real curious to ride in the 21. I'm real curious if there's more speed in these boats. The boat was not fast. I'm going to say it was Ranger fast, and it was empty. but I don't feel like I ever got it trimmed out right. So I'm curious to get in a boat with a guy who's had one of these for a while and let him put the hammer down and see what kind of speed we can get out of it. So I'm going to take my time. I'll get the second part of this video, and it's going to be a 3-parter, I can already tell you. I'm not going to cheat me or you guys or the Vexus people as far as that goes in doing this particular shop on this boat. So that's an overview of the boat, part 1. I'll get back with part 2, and and by the way, you can tell I like the boat. I still don't love the look of the boat from the outside. It's so different than anything I've ever had before. But I remember when Ranger went from the 361 to the wider body boats and how I didn't like that transition. So I'm trying to be real open-minded about this and figure out if I can kind of get my mind around the way this boat looks for the innovations in the boat, and if it's fast enough for me, because I don't want to be the slowest boat on the water. So stick around, and we'll do some more Vexus video in the next week, and I'll get part 2 and part 3 posted up for you guys real soon. Thanks, guys.